That's what I mean. That was the whole main point. They're different things.
Yeah, hey everybody, welcome back. This is Lucas Barfield, and you are tuned in to On the Record on Radio Tacoma 101.9 and KTQA 95.3 LPFM in Tacoma, Washington. And you also may be tuned in online, so thank you so much for joining us. Before we get going, I just want to mention if you could go over to radiotacoma.org and ktqa.org and drop us a small donation. That is really helpful for keeping our stations on the air. And speaking of donations, we have a really special show for you today. I've been wanting to have a guest on to talk about this for a while now, and just so happens Real Art Tacoma is having a fundraiser in December, and today we have Daniel Rounds, the Real Art Tacoma nonprofit director, here with us to talk about that fundraiser and some other things going on, one of Tacoma's best music venues and art venues, Real Art Tacoma. How are you doing today, Daniel?
I'm doing pretty good today. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, really happy to have you on today. Before we start talking about Real Art Tacoma, tell us how you came to work for this venue here in South Tacoma.
Sure. Well, I am currently the nonprofit director, but that doesn't mean that I haven't worn every hat in the venue from everything else. But before, working and volunteering for the venue, I actually saw a couple bands many years ago. I saw some ska bands out of Texas and some other touring bands they had come through before I kind of knew about the venue itself. But I started volunteering at the venue in about 2021-ish, I think. And my first job was just really stay at the back door and make sure no one came in without a wristband and no one left without instruments that weren't theirs. And then it just kind of transformed from there. I had just kind of come off of getting an entrepreneurial degree through Tacoma Community College. And I was just kind of sitting at a meeting with the whole team, and I was like, hey, who's running the nonprofit portion? Like, what are we doing to really expand that? And no one really had any ideas, so I was elected to run it. And then, but I mean, for a time, I was the booking coordinator. I was the person booking all the bands. I was the production director, where I was making sure all the shows were put on calendars, making sure stuff hasn't fallen apart. I've been the front security. I've been the middle security. I've been the I at one point spent a couple days just going once a month to just vacuum the whole venue and do a hard scrub mop on the floors. So, I mean, I've done everything with the venue. So, yeah.
Yeah, it takes a lot of hats to run a venue like this, and we'll talk later about how folks can volunteer there at Real Art Tacoma. Can you tell us a little bit more about Real Art Tacoma's founding story and its mission?
Sure. So Real Art Tacoma is the newest iteration of what is over about 20 years of all ages music in Tacoma. But it is the longest lasting. It all started from the stories I hear from everyone else in the late 90s and early 2000s. There was a group of friends that wanted to host shows, right? They wanted to bring bands in from other places. And the only really place they could find was actually VFW halls, Veterans Foreign Wars halls. You can see it now in the 38th Street, McKinley area. The VFW there has started hosting shows for some local bands as well. But the whole story started actually in University Place, right out behind the 7-Eleven there. There's a great VFW hall that used to host these shows. And so this group of friends just started hosting shows there. They were like, we'll just host shows here. It'll be fine. Well, after they had kind of done the rental and everything like that, they were like, it might actually be a better idea to just have our own space. So they kind of were on the search in about, 2005, 2006, to find a space to host their own shows instead of using VFW halls and such like that. And so they founded this place that's a little more south on South Tacoma Way than where we are currently. It was called the Junkyard. Now, if you're ever in the venue, right after you've checked into the front door, there's a wooden plaque right behind in the little kind of hall right there walking in. That's a wood placard that just says the Junkyard. That was actually the entrance sign to the first venue they tried to open in 2006. Didn't last long. Lasted about 6 months before the fire marshal shut it down. And so they picked up and they still weren't giving up. They were tenacious. They were DIYers. If we can't have a show here, we'll do it outside. So they just kept moving. They just found another space to do it. So what is now in Tacoma, the Tacoma Screw Company, was where they had their second iteration, which was called The Viaduct, which was underneath the I-5 viaduct. That, again, didn't make it past 6 months. Fire marshal showed up, shut them down, and then they moved again to what is the current location, 5412 South Tacoma Way, which was minus the became Viaduct. And that's also where they got their nonprofit, classification. It was at that time. So we are Viaduct doing business as Real Art Tacoma. And so that was open from about 2007 to about 2009. where it hosted Rainfest, which is one of the second most asked questions of the venue, or second most things said to me is always, "Oh man, I remember when Rainfest was here." Rainfest had hosted some known bands at the time that have become kind of big in their own sense of kind of small knowledge. They're not like national acts. Title Fight is a big one among that showed up. They're a big, well-known hardcore emo band that played, and they're still pretty big now. And a bunch of others at the time. But Space closed in 2009, just because it's just hard to keep a space open. It's just hard to, when the only thing the space is running is a venue. It's hard to keep if you don't have enough. If you're just kind of doing it by the skin of your teeth, bringing the money in as you can and trying to keep the space open, it's just hard to do.
Yeah.
Now, this was still the same group. There were different people in this group of friends, so it always kind of became this like torch pass, in this like baton pass of the next person. It wasn't really like a big thing, but it was like one person's like, "Hey, I can't do this anymore." I'm up every day from 7 to midnight. And I mean, they then handed off to the next person, which opened up called the Red Room in downtown Tacoma. The Red Room was I never went to it, but I heard that it was a very small space, but they continued hosting all ages shows. Every space that I've gone through has been an all ages property. There's never been a time where it's like, "Oh, we'll become a bar." It's always been, we're going to be all ages first since that early 2000s. So they ran the Red Room in downtown for a while. The space at Real Art Tacoma transformed from the viaduct space, which was just kind of a big open room with like a stage 4 inches off the ground. That turned into the Tacoma Dance Studio. And if you do enough Google searching, you can actually type in Tacoma Dance Studio, and it'll still give us the address, like on some old listings from like old websites. So it'll actually list us still on there. And at that time, again, there was chats right in 2014, 2015, when the space came back to the 5412 space that we're in currently. It became Real Art Tacoma. It's actually named after the Real Art Theater, which was across the street at the time, which is now in the Edison Square building. And so it came back here as Real Art Tacoma in 2015. The space has changed really from there. I mean, the space was still largely a venue. The first time I went there was still a concession stand. And there was still, like, the cafe wasn't open. There was still a concession stand. And there was still, like, not much, going there. It was still just a venue. Tom, our current director, took over. I don't know exactly the year, but I know he did a lot through the COVID-19 pandemic. And he also, through his know-how, he really turned the space into the Beyond Thunderdome Cafe open, which is great because it brings in a good source as well. We have the Thunderdome vintage store in the other window, which sells vintage shirts. They also sell local brands, a lot of VHS tapes. Like, that vintage store has really come into its own in the past 2 years. They also have part of the back room is the shirt press. They're making music. They make shirts, so it's a lot of the times I'll come in and there'll be a different band's shirts being printed. Tom has every band shirt of every local band because he's printed them himself. So so now that's kind of the main thing, is they kind of run the shirt press in the back. And then we had a barbershop for a while, but that's kind of changed. And so he was able to kind of open the space up in more ways than just the venue, because the venue itself is very difficult to keep open. So he really transformed that space into what it is now, with the cafe, the vintage store, and that kind of setup that we're in now. So our mission, straight from our website, is our aim is to create a space for young people to exist, to express themselves, to find and build community, to be empowered through art, music, and the free exchange of ideas. So what does that really mean? Because that's a lot there to come over. So we're always striving to create a place for youth to exist, right? For a place that is their own, to express themselves through music and through performing art. We're trying to expand into some other art as well. Just with the nature of the space, it's mostly a performing arts space, but we are looking and trying to figure out ways that we can have other art and still continue to host shows as well without having like a single day art, a single day art show. We're trying to work that into it. We've been working a lot at building the performance art up so that our main mission is still that point.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also about finding and building a community and meeting people, making friends, getting to interact with artists, but also feeling empowered about having a space that is all their own. And then it's through that expression and consumption of the arts. So it's just continuing to have a space where it's, hey, your band might be only playing in a garage, but what if you got all your friends to come play? What if you got all your friends and you asked all the, to come see you play at a real place, to have some legitimacy to that and not have a hard roadblock of being like, no, well, you only have 200 people on your Instagram. You've only posted 3 times. You better go figure out what you're doing before you come to our venue. Our venue is that space. I get emails, or when I'm at the venue, somebody comes up to me and they go, oh, I want to play. I go, oh, what's your band? And my favorite is always getting a teenager, and they're like, well, it's kind of this, and I'm like, great, when do you want to play? Let's find a date right now. And I put them on the calendar because it's so important to have that open space of just able to just be like, okay, come on in. Yeah, bring your friends. Show up. Let's do it. And not have that barrier.
Awesome. Yeah, lots of South Tacoma history there. And I ran into a guy one time who owned a bar over there down there on 54th, and he was saying, and I don't know if you'd ever heard of this, I want to ask you this because it sounds like you've been around this area for a little bit. He was saying there's an underground tunnel from around in that area over to the old airport that used to be over there, that they used to smuggle things back and forth here in Tacoma. So lots of history in this area. And wow, you were talking about the VFW halls. I went to some of my first so-called raves or techno parties in VFW halls. And so those used to be really big, where you would go and it'd just be like little small groups putting on shows and things. I wanted to ask you about the location of Real Art, and kind of sticking on that history note. I live right here in the neighborhood where Real Art Tacoma is. And talk about the location of Real Art Tacoma and how that contributes to its success and its mission.
I mean, the location was set before the mission, is what I like to say, is that, like I said, the mission was always have an all ages space for kids to experience music and performing art, and to have a place where they can be. I mean, it's great now, because South Tacoma Way has become, in recent years, the development of it has become something with Howdy Bagel coming in the past few years, the expansion of Airport Tavern, and their Airport Tavern Music Hall. I mean, we've seen a lot of growth, but I think that the growth, let the location, even if we had to move, it would still be the same mission as it goes. I mean, the location's good for now. I mean, we still have some troubles getting people down to South Tacoma Way because it still has a bad connotation to some people. And there's still, the issues that, I mean, there's more issues that we run into on South Tacoma Way, but South Tacoma Way is our home. And so it's hard to get buses to go out there after 11 or 12. It's hard because there's one bus line that comes through that area and it stops at like 7 o'clock.
Yep.
The location is just difficult. It is a difficult location, but it in itself makes it, you got to work harder. You got to do it yourself more. I mean, like I said, the mission came after the location. I mean, I don't, because like I said, it was home of Viaduct, which was in 2006, 2007, and the mission stays the same wherever we are. It's really just about continuing that.
So I was looking at your website, and you mentioned creating safe spaces, and there is a little bit to read there on your website, and I was very impressed. And it seems that you guys really lean into what they're calling these days DEI, or diversity, equity, inclusion. Now, you don't say those exact words on your website, but how important do you think it is that music venues or spaces embrace these things so that everybody is welcome there? And how does Real Art Tacoma foster that environment?
Well, I mean, I at least feel like that with diversity, equity, and inclusion, you can't truly have one without the others. Like, in order to be diverse, you need to be inclusive of diversity. And to be inclusive is to be inclusive of diversity. And to do either, you need to do your best to be equitable about it, especially in a society that both historically and currently systemically really blocks access. On the community front, like I mentioned, Tacoma is a diverse community. So to be reflective of the community is to be inclusive and diverse. So to be specific, though, is that youth in our community deserve to have access to spaces that are both representative and inclusive, because it can be even harder for youth who may or aren't what society deems as a normal or a regular person, to find a community that is. And two of the ways we're really pushing that equity component is to make sure we are accessible. We refuse to have what's called a pay-to-play mentality, which is you need to sell a certain amount of tickets or else your band doesn't play, or forcing, that kind of thing. And then it's also our volunteers we have a stipend system for our volunteers for our day of shows, where you earn a little bit, a stipend amount of money to come and be part of this, so that it's not I'm volunteering when I could be, I'm spending my time not doing something that's compensatory. But it's we do have that. And then with our youth ticketing pricing that we've been so graciously given grants from the Tacoma Creates team, we were able to really bring down what is one of my big things is just financial barriership, which is that look, artists for everyone, having that price, it's a double-edged sword for us, and not in a bad way. It's that look, we want as many people to show up. If we could do every show free and have this space and have people just show up and be part of it, we would. But having a space, having the lights, having the sound, having everything that we have that makes the space what it is, does take money. And it's and so when we get these grants, we really try to build a way that we can overcome a barrier, especially for our youth. Like I said, we're an all ages venue where youth is our focus. So we were able to take a lot of our ticket pricing on a good amount of shows down to that $5 day of show price. And what that is so that students, mostly in high school for now, I'm looking over a few grants and trying to expand that so that we can bring in college students. But again, we're working on just keeping the venue open, making enough money so that we can continue to keep the doors open. And we're still working to expand that to where any high school student can come in for most shows with the Tacoma Creates logo on it. And it usually says how much. It's about $5 to $8, depending on where we want to set it. And then the Tacoma Creates grant actually pays up the rest of it per ticket. Because again, we could offer a cheaper ticket to our youth with no other problems, but then we're telling artists that these youth are not going to be bringing you money. The more youth you have, the less money you're going to get. So we wanted to have a system in place where, look, you should be happy. These youth are, the youth are here. They're not taking money from you in that their ticket was cheaper. You're getting the same amount of money. So a $15 ticket still gets that $10 coverage from the Tacoma Creates grant when a student comes and spends their $5. And so, that's really been, with that youth ticket pricing, we've really seen that growth of youth bands come in and people show up. And the other thing is that art and music are just better when the people creating it keep these factors in mind, considering most popular music genres came from Black, queer, and femme artists. We'd also miss out on so many awesome artists that often get their starts here and at our other DIY venues and spaces. Most artists that have really come up in the alternative scene and such like that started in DIY spaces. They started in people's garages, in people's living rooms, in people's backyards.
Yeah, so true. And you mentioned Tacoma Creates. That is a program through the city of Tacoma. And how important do you think it is that cities foster art like Tacoma Creates does?
I think that there is, there's this idea of with art where, art is not, making art and being there and being able to create, in a capacity that allows true expression. We sadly have to have the funds to do so. I think that it's important. I'm really excited that Tacoma Creates has gotten they got approval for the next 2 years. We're really excited for that. They've been really helpful in not only just providing us with financial backing that we've been using for these these ticket process, but they've really been good about not just like being like, hey, it's there, show up, you need to do the work. I mean, they've came up to us and literally engaged with us to make sure we were using their programs that we were using their programs and that this is what this program is for. But they've also, this last year, they've really created a way to tap into using marketing materials. They have like New Day Northwest, I think is what it is. They're like, hey, you tell them you're with Tacoma Creates, you can come on you can come do a TV show interview with them. They've really helped expand marketing to the schools for like youth aged events, to where like the schools use like a certain system where they send it out. And so before it was you had to pay into this third party system to then send out flyers, send out stuff. And Tacoma Creates has helped kind of be like, hey, you tell them you're with Tacoma Creates, we'll just do it. We just pay for it. We get that access. They've really helped. I've really seen the Tacoma Creates process. I haven't really worked with many other cities' processes, but I've really just seen that they're really living this way where it's like, it's not just about money. It's about access. It's about feeling like you're connecting with the city in a way that's not just like, it's there, you show up, you give us what you want, and I guess we'll give you money back. They've really fostered this relationship of arts are important to Tacoma, and we're going to prove that to you in how we're expanding how we're expanding our engagement, how we're expanding our use of the stuff that we already have.
Yeah, really great to hear Tacoma Creates is supporting you guys like that. And as the budgets start to get crunched a little more, it's really important we keep these programs going. So you're an all-volunteer organization. How can folks come and volunteer with Real Art Tacoma?
Well, I mean, the big thing is that Real Art Tacoma is ran by volunteers. I'm a volunteer. Our executive director, Tom, is not paid a salary, and he is a volunteer. We try our best to return, we could have a staff. We could very much keep a staff if we could try our best to, but we try to keep the lights on, and our best is to do updates as we can, because the artists are the ones that are providing that to us. I mean, we are trying to provide that money back, but we are also trying to provide the space that can have that. I mean, Tom just took out a $60,000 loan to update our light and sound system. So we just got a brand new, I don't know if it's state of the art, but I know that it's up to date than what we had before. I mean, even before, the sound system we were using was from like 2 places before, or was donated from someone to use in the space. I mean, it was held together with half it didn't work and the other part of it, the before was held together with hope. So, I mean, if people want to volunteer, we have on our website, you can go to volunteer, you can fill out the volunteer application. You'll get an email to come do our orientation and our volunteer meeting. That's always the 4th Tuesday of every month. Because that's part of our community day. And then we'll just kind of go from there. And then you just sign up for our shows. You get to come out and hang out. And I mean, the other thing that I like to reiterate, especially with volunteering, is we kind of have a 2-level volunteering system. We have volunteering for the youth, which is they get to which is more for like our younger volunteers. So it's like, hey, you get to have cashiering experience. You get to have backstage monitoring, or backstage, we're trying to expand it to like a stagehand helpful role, to where it's like you're learning the stagehand craft of it. And then there's more back office stuff that we always need help with. So I mean, if you're someone that I don't really have this much time and I can't really be like, I'm going to give up 3 hours to be at the venue, you don't have to. Working remote is kind of that new form thing, but if you have skills and talents, we'll find something that you want to do. We can find some way to if you're interested in helping us and you want to help the mission, I always tell people whenever they want to volunteer, I go, what do you want to do? I can find something we can have you volunteer for. We can create a position that you want to help with that helps your skills build on.
Yeah, if you could pick one band to come to Real Art Tacoma, what would it be? Or who would it be?
Oh, that's a hard question to pick. Because I like all sorts of stuff, and it's really subjective for sure. But one of the things that I've always wanted to do is secret shows. We had in 2021, we had the punk band Pennywise. showed up. They wanted to do shows, and they ended up bringing it to the venue. Now, this is a band that their normal starting cap for shows needs to be like 2,500 people, and so the show sold out in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
We posted it at 10 a.m. They played that week. 300 tickets sold out in 20 minutes. But I think that there's just this, especially as we see punk rock really begin to take a center focus again, and hardcore really beginning to take a center focus. I mean, we are based, our history is that of hardcore music. I mean, it started in VFW halls because the guys wanted bands, the friends wanted hardcore bands to play, and no one would let them play, and they didn't, and they couldn't take it to Seattle, and so they were like, no, we'll just play with the lights on the ground in the VFW hall. And so it'd be cool to get like these hardcore artists to really come back and have a secret show where it's like, hey, we're not going to tell anybody till the day of, and then we're going to play in this tiny venue of 300 people, and it's just going to feel like we were when we were 17, like we were when we played in the VFW hall. So that's kind of, I can't pick one artist. My artist, sure, it would be great to have, but I would just love to see secret shows happen to where we have these great bands come out to kind of relive this experience of playing in this small venue of, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Love Hardcore went up and saw No Warning and High Vis a couple of weeks back up in Seattle. So really great to be hearing all that music kind of come back to the forefront, and definitely the times for that kind of music. I wanted to ask you this next question, and this is kind of getting off into the weeds, as it were. With all this so-called AI art coming out, and I frankly have not consumed a lot of it. Number one, because I'm blind, and number two, with the music, I don't really tool around a lot online listening to just AI acts and things like that. So I wanted to ask you, with this emergence of AI so-called art, how important, or what do you think is going to be the future of live acts, and why is it so important for folks to get out and see bands right in front of them instead of online content? If that makes sense.
Sure. And I think that, it's something that my background was also in theater. I attempted to get a theater degree when I was 18. And so I think that we're seeing a lot of, I think that this AI art, the art that creates from nothing or creates from a prompt, I don't think that it'll ever really be, the issues that we're seeing now is more the use of it in poster design and album art design, and maybe like things that are outside of the performance. I find that we are in kind of a new live performance renaissance here, where we've gotten away from a recording, and I think that's really from the rise of it's the rise of like Twitch streaming and this like see what happens live kind of thing. I mean, you can watch streamers now on Twitch. It's still a live entity if you really think about it. That's a live show. You're never going to see that show again. And I think we're seeing this rise of live performances again because our youth and, Gen Z and that really got into seeing something happen live. There are moments in and I use Twitch as a great example, is that you could see things happen. You're like, oh, did you see that happen? No, it's gone. We don't have any recordings of it. And it's like, that's exactly the difference. And we're seeing, I think that we're leaving the time of, oh, why would I watch that when I could just do it online? And I think that we're really seeing the growth of, why would I sit online and watch that? That's never going to happen again. I mean, one of my favorite acts that came through was we were doing a little festival in May that we called our Little Fest. It was the first year we had done it, and we were waiting for bands to come on. It was just your normal music, everyone was playing music coming through it, and what happened was, and I had not booked this band. I had no idea about them. I maybe looked them up on Instagram for like 2 seconds when I was posting stuff about them. They're called Plagued by Night Mayors. Mayor as in like mayor of the city. Had no idea about them. I'm at the venue in an on-site capacity where I'm just kind of, helping out as stuff comes in. And then and this is like middle of the day, all of a sudden they're passing out like these little sheets of paper, and it was literally it was a program, like a theatrical program. And I go, oh, this is weird. They had us put it at the front desk for people coming in. We're like, oh, that's all. Like, oh, weird to think about. Then all of a sudden the lights go out. And for 35 minutes, this was unplanned. I even asked our booking person for that show. I was like, did you know this was coming? No. It was a full 35-minute performance of a soap opera musical. Costume changes, confetti, everything. We had no idea it was coming. And I think, there's no video of it.
Yeah.
No one would believe, you're probably like, no, that didn't happen. It did. It was just as random in the middle of it. We had no idea it was coming. We had no idea this was going to be a full, we were like, oh, they're going to perform. And there was a couple things they had told us, but we didn't know it was going to be a full 30-minute costume changes, musical soap opera. And, and they get done. They leave. They bow. We had a full bow. They leave. And then we're like, okay. And then the next band came on, and it was just this, that's never going to happen again. If you didn't know that was going to happen and you didn't see that recorded live, we didn't record it. I mean, it's something that no one's going to believe again. But I think that people are coming back around to once in a lifetime only happens once. You can't record a once in a lifetime moment because you're never going to experience what those people did in that room.
You guys have a fundraiser coming up. What's going to be the format of that? And most importantly, how can folks start getting involved with maybe planning that and donate to your fundraiser?
Yeah, so tickets go on sale October 20th. It is for is the Real Art Tacoma Fest or Rat Fest. It is going to be 2 nights, December 12th and 13th, celebrating all ages music and the impact that all ages that having these spaces has. Because not only do we have bands that are mostly made up of high school students, college students, and such, we have a couple bands where it's a family. Where some of the band is all adults, but my kid wanted to play in a band, but no one wanted to play in the band, so now we have a band. And so we have some bands that are family, or they're or it's dad and son are playing, but the rest of the band is all 40, but the kid needs to play, and so they're there. We just have a lot of people that are either that or they've impacted all ages music, especially in Tacoma, or in some way in the Pierce County area. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're doing some fundraiser activities we have that are going to be going on. We're doing what's called the Mystery Merch Box Raffle. What this is we're collecting merchandise from local bands, preferably from the area that have played at the venue. We're collecting merch. It doesn't matter if they're local or whatever, but what it is we're going to fill boxes full of stuff that we get donated. So that can be records, CDs, stickers, shirts. We try to go for weirder stuff. So it's if you've got something that's not record, CD, sticker, shirt, please let us know. And then we're going to fill these boxes. And then for $1, you can get entered to win the box. You get the full box of merch. When we did this the first year, it was actually a band member, because we didn't really have that many people. A band member won, and I'd only done 1 box. So the next few years we've done a couple more. So we're trying to do 6 this year, so we can give away 3 a night. When they won, it was a full box. It was it was a 24 by 24 inch box. It was huge. They won, and it was watching that, just watching a little kid throw and just take stuff out. They were pulling all the shirts out. They were like, "Oh, this band's so cool! I saw them once." And they would just set stuff down. It was just they just kept pulling stuff out. They're going, "Oh man, look at this hat!" And then they would put the hat on each other. It was great. It was one of my favorite things. That's why I continue to do it. And so that's one thing. If you're in a band, or even if you're in a local business, if you want to send me something, we'll throw it in the box. We can add that to it. We're also doing our golden ticket raffle. The golden ticket is you get entry into every single show at Real Art Tacoma in 2026 from January 1st to December 31st of 2026.
That's a good one.
The only thing real restricts on that is we do, although we are all ages first, and we try our best to keep all ages, there are, if it's a rental for 21 plus, we do allow that. We try not to have too many of those. And then there are some that just have an 18 plus kind of factor just due to the nature of the event itself. So there is age restriction because anyone can win. The great thing about that is so the mystery merch box raffles, you need to be at the event to win one. So you can buy those online with your ticket, and then you can just get a bunch of them at the event, before you get to the event if you want to do that. The golden ticket, you do not have to be present to win. So tickets will launch. You can go online. You can buy as many as you want, and then and then you can win it. You don't have to be present. So if you can't make it to the event, you could still win. Those are 15. Those are 12. There's going to be 12 online, and then they become 15 that weekend. But again, you win, you get to go to every single show for a whole year, no matter what there, except for age restrictions. So those are two of the great things going on with that. We're going to have, just like hockey and just like another place, we will be having a 50-50 raffle, always a fun one.
Yep.
We are also having a raise-a-thon. What this is the bands that are playing are setting up part of this kind of a team raise-a-thon. So you can donate to them. You can donate to the band that you like. We are also looking for organizations that want to help us, much like many fundraisers as well, where it's just you interact with your community and raise money for Real Art Tacoma. We will be announcing the winner of that raised the most money, and there may be a trophy. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We have some really big music acts that are coming through. We have 17 or 18 different musical acts playing over the 2 days. So,
oh, wow.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah.
That all sounds really awesome, and I am definitely going to enter to win one of those golden tickets, a entry to all the shows through all of 2026. Wow, that is really great. $12 or $15. Make sure to check out Real Art Tacoma's fundraiser on December 12th and 13th. I definitely will try to make that, and it sounds like you have a lot of bands and really sounds like a lot of fun. Before we get out of here, if people want to read more about Real Art Tacoma and your mission and your founding story, and they, have a really great website, and if folks want to find out more how to volunteer and more about your fundraiser coming up, where can folks go to do that?
It'll be on our website. Our website is realarttacoma.com. You can also, we do a lot of work through our Instagram, so you'll see that come up as well, kind of talking about it. And then you can also join our email list if you prefer not to go on social media. You can join our email list and get information about upcoming events directly to your inbox.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, Daniel.
You are very welcome. Again, thank you so much for having me on.
Special thanks to Milkkrayt for the intro. The name of that tune was All the Lies. And now, Milkkrayt, Another Way.